In the news this week from Dorchester, there's an ongoing surge of new sites for COVID-19 vaccinations and some progress toward fixing problems with Morrissey Blvd and another washout coming for Dorchester Day. To bring us up to date is the managing editor and publisher of the Dorchester Reporter, Bill Forry. Bill, thank you very much for being with us. I want to start with the vaccinations because that's on so many people's minds right now. What's it look like in Dorchester right now?
Hi, Chris. Well, things are moving right along. As you know, Mayor Walsh said this week that about 20% of the city has now had at least one shot and one vaccine, those over age 16. And much of that activity is happening in our neighborhood. Several of the community health centers have now staged vaccine sites in the neighborhood. One of them opened last week at Florian Hall in Neponset. That was a new location that came online earlier in the week, and it is servicing hundreds of people per day at this point, and they're hoping to ramp it up to about 1,000 people a day at Florian Hall. That's being run by Harbor Health, which operates the Neponset Health Center. And they're also getting support at that particular location from the National Guard, who are actually on scene, helping with logistics, helping check people in, things like that. There's also a major vaccine location at Russell Auditorium, which we've talked about before, that continues to service hundreds of people a day, and they continue to ramp up. So yeah, a lot of activity on vaccines. And of course, there also are bigger sites at the Reggie Lewis Center and at Fenway Park, soon to be Heinz Auditorium. So there are plenty of options here, in addition to the pharmacies that are doing smaller volume, but still an important part of the local infrastructure for vaccinations.
There still isn't enough vaccine to go around for everybody right away. But what about the way people might be getting prioritized? I know the health centers are playing a role in the pipeline to these sites. Is there a real strategy behind it somehow?
I think the strategy from the health centers has been to really target their existing patient base to begin with, to call them, to invite them in. And because in part of the concern early on has been to make sure that particularly people in communities of color take advantage of the vaccine, aren't dissuaded from using it, or taking it from past history that has been quite, quite checkered in terms of medical science. So that has turned out to be a good strategy. I think people do feel comfortable going to places like Florian Hall, Russell Auditorium, where they go for usually for happy occasions. And for most people who are going in, this is a happy occasion. People are excited about getting the vaccine. They want to be reunited with their families, their grandchildren. My dad, who's 76, got his second dose this past weekend. And it's a joyous moment for most people who have now gotten one or at least one shot.
I want to ask you about the closing of the Dorchester Youth Collaborative, which is based in Fields Corner. It's sad news because teens do need more places to go, but I guess there's a little more hope that's emerged lately.
Well, there is, Chris. Yeah, it's a blow to lose DYC. And I know you talked to Emmett Folgert on your program recently. Emmett has done amazing work over his 40 years in Fields Corner, especially working with older teens and young adults who oftentimes don't fit into the rubric of traditional like youth centers. They're a demographic that is, really needs attention in our community. And DYC has been a real haven for especially young people, over age 16 and into their young adulthood, helping them get job placements, engage in the arts, and DYC even has helped people get on track with their careers in music and in film. So it's a real loss to have them go down. However, one bright side here is that there's a new organization that's formed in Fields Corner called Fields Corner Crossroads, and it's a coalition of existing services, places like Dot House Health, Viet Aid. DYC was a part of this at the beginning. They've come together over the last year through a major grant they received from Children's Hospital with the intention of really kind of trying to streamline services for families and young people, but just across the board, try to coordinate all these social service agencies that are centered in Fields Corner. One of them, ADSL, is an important youth group that has often partnered with Dorchester Youth Collaborative. There's talk among them now of trying to restore some of DYC's services, maybe reuse the space that they've occupied. right in the heart of Fields Corner. So those conversations are ongoing. But what we definitely know is that Fields Corner Crossroads is going to endeavor to really pick up some of the slack that DYC left, and to really amplify the work of those kind of organizations that are doing really important work on the ground every day.
Speaking of Crossroads, take Kosciuszko Circle near JFK UMass Station. That has been a real choke point for traffic for a long time. And Morrissey Boulevard, if you just go down the on-ramp there, that's a problem because of rising sea levels. And then you get all this new development going on. And one of the things that you've been following is when the state's going to figure out how to solve those problems. What's new?
Well, just last week, we have some news. The state, the Baker administration has teamed up with Marty Walsh's administration to fund a new study that is intended to really focus on how they're going to get over the hurdle that's happened over the last few years, and really focus on how they're going to rebuild Morrissey Boulevard, Kosciuszko Circle, Day Boulevard, and Old Colony Boulevard, and Columbia Road for that matter. So that nexus around Kosciuszko Circle has been, not really planned out. Morrissey Boulevard has been undergoing review and actual engineering plans for doing a major overhaul of the boulevard. As you mentioned, Chris, people will know this well. Morrissey, especially along the coastal section there by the beaches, floods out routinely whenever there's a high tide. The road has to be closed. It's a major problem. And of course, that's only going to get worse as sea levels continue to rise. So part of this project is to elevate the roadway in places, to make it, in good repair. People sometimes forget that roadway like slices through Dorchester Bay, right? That didn't used to be there. It's on landfill. And of course, it's a vulnerable coastal road, but it's a vital artery into the city. So this new study that they announced last week will be about $1 million, probably more over time. And it'll be led by Mass Department of Transportation, DOT. And they're going to really push ahead and try to integrate the existing plans that are there for Morrissey Boulevard, and incorporate Kosciuszko, Day Boulevard, the road systems around Moakley Park. So it's good news. People have been, wondering, when is this actually going to get started? It's going to get started in terms of the study in the next few months. And we expect by this time next year, they'll have a concrete plan, hopefully shovel ready, to begin work. Because as you mentioned, there are major projects in the pipeline. The old Bayside Expo Center, the Boston Globe is what used to be the Globe is about to come online as a new office complex. There are other residential towers planned next to that. So all of this development really begs for a solution to this infrastructure problem. And it looks like state and city authorities are now getting serious about doing that.
Bill, as it is now, you can get a free shuttle bus service between JFK, UMass, and the Columbia Point Peninsula, but you could still get stuck in traffic. So isn't there a need for better public transportation that would make people really incentivized to not use their cars?
Well, I think that's a hope, that's an aspiration here of the officials who are planning this study. They also want to make it safer for bicyclists because, of course, Morrissey could be a very important route into the city from the South Shore, from parts of Dorchester, but also parts south. And right now, it's not a pleasant trip, right? And it's a hazardous one because of the expressway off ramp. The Beads Bridge, the drawbridge, is a very narrow passage, but there are other ways to approach it from the Greenway that is existing in parts of Dorchester and Milton, bringing people into the Harbor Walk. They need to make that part of this strategy. But to your point, yes, JFK UMass, for instance, is also overdue for work, and integrating the road system to make it easier for people not only to take buses, but to take bicycles and to walk is all part of this strategy, I think.
Bill, another washout of sorts awaits the Dorchester Day Parade. I mean, 2 years in a row. I mean, can you take it much longer?
I'm at the end of my rope, Chris. Yeah, I was disappointed, but I understand that the Dorchester Day Parade Committee had to make a decision. I think they're following the lead of other events like Pride that is already postponed or canceled this year's event. It makes sense. It's disappointing, but their attitude is like, let's do this right when we can all do it safely. And I think 2022 is really going to be a party year for folks in Dorchester. You know, barbecues and backyard gatherings are still going to happen this this June. It would have been the first Sunday in June, and you can bet people like me will be having fun that day to celebrate the neighborhood that we care about, love. But yeah, the parade's off. It's okay. We'll get there someday, probably in 2022.
Bill, I want to ask you about a recent story that did get a lot of attention not so long ago, and this was about the infant who was found in Lower Mills in a trash container. And there's concern about this. I think it's because it spreads pretty wide. Anything that's being done about possible, you know, crises in the future to prevent that?
Yeah, there's a group that is focused on the baby safe haven law that exists in Massachusetts, which allows for anyone who does have a newborn and maybe in crisis or whatever's going on in their lives, and they want to pass that child, infant, along to authorities. They can do so at places like hospitals, police stations, and fire stations. And it's hard to know whether that would have made a difference in this case that you mentioned in Lower Mills, where thankfully that infant was found safely and was taken to hospital and is doing quite well. The mother, of course, in that case has been charged with attempted murder. It's a sad story. This baby safe haven advocates have been, over the last week, affixing signage to especially Boston fire stations, about 20 of them across the city. They're big, bright gold and black signs that call attention to the fact that those locations are places you can, if there's a crisis and an emergency, you can drop off an infant as long as they're no older than 7 days without penalty. It's not the ideal thing, but it is the state law, and it's an option for folks who may be in some sort of emergency or crisis, having just given birth.
Bill, I know there's still a bit of a wait on the confirmation of Marty Walsh as Labor Secretary, but I know you have all of these macro updates on the political scene. So if people want to keep up with that, where can they go online to find that?
Yeah, we are keeping track of all of that stuff day to day, Chris. It's at .news.com. If you go to our website, that's the Dorchester Reporter's website. We have a dedicated space on that site called the Lit Drop, which covers city politics. So we're keeping track not only of what's going on with Mayor Walsh, and by the way, we do expect him to be confirmed probably next week, but we're also covering the transition to City Council President Janey, and of course the election of a new mayor and a new city council. So it's an exciting year in city politics. .news.com is a great place to keep track of it.
Thank you very much, Bill. Every time I look, there's another name, and we appreciate your taking the time to join us.
Thanks, Chris.
That's Bill Forry from the Dorchester Reporter. We'll have more news in just a moment.